Hello, I'm Chris Burns, and welcome to The Network, hard talk with a matrix of newsmakers. At issue in this program, Europe appears headed toward a hot autumn and a winter of discontent. French and Polish trade unions called protests against government austerity after similar actions in Germany and Greece. Eurozone unemployment remains stuck above 12%, more than 50% among youth in a number of countries. It's a ticking social time bomb governments are hard-pressed to address, squeezed by Euro budget rules and Brussels demands for painful reforms, such as liberating labor markets. France's budget deficit is over 4% of GDP, with the country's credit rating downgraded from AAA. Along with Greece, Spain, Portugal, and Italy, France is struggling to follow through on promised reforms. Who's going to have to bend, and what impact will that have on the euro? Now, wired into this edition of The Network is here from the European Parliament in Brussels, Pervenche Berès, chair of the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs and a member of the Socialists and Democrats, or S&D. Also here at the Parliament, Phil Bennion, also on the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs and a member of the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats, or ALDE. And in Frankfurt, Carsten Jeske, senior economist for ING Belgium. Now, a question first to all of you, starting with Pervenche. How dangerous is this 12% unemployment rate in the Eurozone and the 50+% among youth in some countries? How much can it destabilize governments? How much can it spark unrest?
It can destabilize any situation at the European level, and it's time to realize that as long as this problem has not been addressed, the crisis will not be over.
That's well said, but I mean, how much can it destabilize which governments, do you think, Phil?
I think the real danger is if these young people are still unemployed in 5 years, 10 years' time, and then you start getting areas of Europe where there is intergenerational unemployment, because that's really difficult to get out of.
Carsten, where do you see this? Which governments could be the first to be truly destabilized by this?
Obviously, I think it's the Spanish and the Greek governments, because I think really this unrest, the high unemployment rate, could give rise to nationalistic, to populist movements, which could mean that these countries really at some point in time say no or say goodbye to Europe.
How is this going to impact elections nationally and at the European Parliament next year?
Yeah, I think this is why in the European Parliament we are so much mobilized to make sure that this youth employment initiative means something, that is just help people to understand that the issue of the unemployment of young people is now addressed as a priority.
One of your S&D colleagues, Martin Schulz, President of the Parliament, blasted the European Commission for failing to combat youth unemployment. What should the Commission have done? Do you agree with him, Phil, even though he's not the same party?
We've only got a small budget here in the EU, so I think the member states have to tackle this head on, and the key has to be employability. Employability and flexible labour markets will get us out of this in the long run.
Is that what you think, Carsten?
I agree. I think you could also think at the European level to exclude maybe investment in new jobs, investment in jobs for the young ones, to exclude those from the fiscal rules. So you really should think innovative here, because you need to give this young generation hope that otherwise they really turn their back to Europe.
Okay, that's interesting to hear from you as a business analyst, that maybe youth jobs should be subsidized, but is that really sustainable in the long run, Pervenche?
I think on top of what is just being proposed, the issue of the banking union is a critical point if we are consistent in fighting unemployment. Why? Because what you need is that the strategy for investment on the private and the public side can be started again, and for this you need the confidence of the banking union.
The banking union. Banking union, that's an important aspect. How much is that linked to jobs, Phil?
I think the banking union is important because if the Eurozone is not a proper currency area, and if national central banks can undermine the efforts of the ECB, I think there will continue to be a problem with deficits and getting the deficits under control.
So Mr. Barroso was on the money there when he made that State of the Union speech, saying that was very important. Is that really linked to jobs, Carsten?
I would agree with Phil that it is highly important really to have the fundamentals right for the monetary union. But I'm a bit more doubtful that it would help jobs in the short run, because look at it, I think we will only have a fully fledged banking union end of next year, maybe 2015. So that's clearly too late to really to lay the grounds for more job growth.
Okay, what about these temporary contracts that youth complain a lot about? They're stuck in this cycle of temporary contracts. Should that be done away with? Should it become stricter? Or is that the flexibility that employers need to hire? Pelvanche.
Well, there need to be some flexibility, but if this flexibility is going to organize social dumping, we are going to kill the model on which we are based for our competitiveness.
Okay, but Phil, I think you seem to have spoken with me about a success story in the sense that you've been able to bring unemployment down in the UK around 7%. That's the dream of a lot of countries here on the continent. Do you think that there should be more flexibility, that these temporary contracts are a virtue as opposed to an evil?
Yes, they are a virtue as opposed to an evil, and flexibility in more ways than one. I mean, what we've seen in the UK is, it's been regrettable, but we have seen income levels fall in real terms since 2008. But it's meant we've retained our labour force.
Okay, and what about that flexibility about work weeks? Should France scrap the 35-hour work week once and for all or not? Karsten.
I think we clearly need longer working weeks. We need more flexibility. Of course, we need to be aware that there can be downside risks to too many temporary contracts. But I think really the key here to create more jobs is flexibility in terms of labor hours and contracts, because this is the only way that we really get people back to work.
In Pelvanche, that certainly concerns your government. What do you think?
I think this is a wrong route to go, only look at this one, because it refers to this idea that the unique labor cost is the mere indicator for competitivity. And I think there are very much other elements you need to take on board that go beyond the one you're just addressing.
Okay, what about the pension age? Should that be increased? Phil?
Yes, well, we're moving on in that direction already. We're gradually moving ours up to 68. So I think it's with people living longer and people in their late 60s still actually mainly wanting to work. I think that this is it's got to be part of the process. Okay,
that will cut the social costs, but then what about this idea of maybe retirements? If you retire people later, you're preventing there from being new jobs being opened up. What do you think, Karsten? Where's that sort of... Is it a zero-sum game?
We have to face the reality, which is that social systems in Europe are coming under enormous pressure. We're faced with aging, we face that public finances are under pressure.
Exactly.
So in a way, something's got to give, and we have to increase the retirement ages. Probably another inconvenient truth will be whether we can sustain the retirement or the pension levels.
Okay, Pelvanche, what do you think about the retirement age?
Yeah, I think the best way to solve all these questions is to create more jobs. And so what we really need to focus on is to make sure that we can recover an investment strategy, and this investment strategy will deliver in terms of job creation.
Okay, and one last question to Phil. Do you think that these austerity policies that are being imposed on countries like Portugal, Italy, Greece, Spain, are they being too tough? Are they killing their recoveries?
You do have to time them. I mean, in the UK, for instance, we've still got a 5.5%, 6% deficit, but we started in 2010 with about 13%. So you actually have to have a trajectory. We're aiming to balance the books by about 2018. So the trajectory has to be reasonable and achievable. But without it, you'll end up with higher interest rates.
Real quick, Karsten, what do you think? Are we killing those recoveries with austerity?
No, I think because austerity comes together with structural reforms, and it's the bullet we have to buy through. We've also seen that the trajectory actually has been extended so far. So I think really this mixture of austerity measures, getting public finances back on a sustainable footing, and at the same time structural reforms to return to growth, it's the only way forward. And we do see that progress is made in the southern European countries.
Thanks very much, Karsten. I'd like to thank our guests, Pelvanche Berès, Phil Bennion, and Karsten Jeske. I'm Chris Burns, and until next time, thanks for connecting with The Network.